Okay, so my name is Joshua Seeley,
I'm Mohito Paul.
and we are Group 2, Undergraduate Group 2. At the beginning of this competition, we were introduced with a problem and a situation that needed to be solved within Layton Construction. So in order to do that, we had to understand what needed to be done. First of all, Layton Construction bases their work off of job costs and overhead. They run construction projects based on time and budgets. The main goal is to focus as much time and resources in charging the job costs while staying under budget and not going over budget. If they cannot go over, they have to charge overhead. That's when they go over budget, and that gets directly billed to the business, and they don't want that. So secondly, projects are considered on the bench, which means that they are available to allocate to another project, and when they're on bench, that means they're on overhead. And so because it would be optimal to utilize every employee on job costs, those employees who are on bench should be utilized to their corresponding departments. So if we can identify which department with which employee who are on bench the most, we can then help the company divert the focus in these specific areas to make sure that they allocate their assets in the best possible way to create revenue. And so we're going to go over our visuals now.
So to start off, we looked at the data and we decided that the main focus, we started with the timesheets data, and we cleaned that data by getting rid of the most recent pay period and any of the category codes like paid time off, holidays that we don't want to include because they're not being charged late in construction. So we cleaned the data using that, and also making sure the job code is clear, whether it's overhead or job cost, depending on the length of job code. Then we joined the active employees with the trade description and charge rate table to figure out which employees in their jobs are job costs and which ones are overhead. If employees are already overhead, we don't really care if they're doing overhead work because that's what they're supposed to do. But it's bad for Layton Construction if job costed employees are doing overhead work. So once joining those two tables, we joined with those two tables with the cleaned timesheets tables to get the data set that we use for most of our visualizations. I'm going to go ahead and share our dashboard with all of you. So start off in this.
So here we have a pie graph of the total hours between each department. And so this is really useful because if you're a manager, you can be like, oh, I want to see what's going on in interior construction. So you click on interior construction, it brings you to different job cases or job types. So say you want to see what's going on with your senior project managers, and then you click on it, and then you're able to see a pie chart that splits between overhead and job costs. So then you want to go into overhead to see what's not being utilized. And then from there, you're able to see the employee numbers of everyone who's on overhead. You're able to see the PPR periods. And then from PPR, you can actually put in the specific time frame you want to see where they're at. And then you can that better specifics to one person that you can actually dial it down to see what's being allocated and not.
This is really useful for managers when for example, you want a senior project manager to work on an interior construction project. You can look at this and say, hey, this employee, he's spending overhead time, so we can reallocate him to a better project. And then we also want to be able to look at department level overhead versus job cost data. We see that some departments like field operations and safety have fully overhead hours billed, while others like interior construction are much less. And we have some that with even zero, like corporate construction and the Denver department. So let's say we want to continue to look at interior construction. We click on this, we can also filter by period and filter by job cost or overhead and see the different managers' performance. We see that 4 managers have 100% job costed hours, while 1 has only 82% job costed hours. So we can try to figure out where that inefficiency comes from. So clicking on a manager, we drill down even more to show the specific employees. And say we just want to look in this time period, the two most recent pay periods. Then we can click on this employee and see data about how they're spending their time job costed versus overhead. So the total amount of hours. And then we can click on overhead and show a spreadsheet showing the employee's history over time. We can see what they've done in different areas and get an idea of what they're good at with their trade. If we go back to manager numbers, we can click on different employees, filter out in different time periods, and get a really good idea of like the overall way that this employee is working. For example, you can see that this employee has a lot of overhead hours, and that can be something that can be a little bit concerning. So that might be someone we want to reallocate.
So that basically just helps identify every employee on bench.
So these are really good tools for a manager to be able to figure out which employees need to be allocated and are on the bench. We also managed to look at the final time left to spend, and it varied a lot by department, with some having a lot more labor hours left to spend, a lot more money, and while some having a lot less. If we drill into this and get rid of that filter, we can see that the Hawaii and Southern California department are at the worst and are the closest to getting over budget and having to have a lot more overhead hours. So overall, we think these visualizations are really helpful to Layton Construction to figure out how better to reallocate resources and be able to see where the inefficiencies are in their business.
And yeah, I think that's, yeah, thank you for the time.
Yeah, thank you.